Hello, welcome to today's class, a continuation of our previous class on handling missing data using the linear interpolation method. I want us to use a case study for today's class, which is on predicting product stock levels in an e-commerce store. First of all, when we talk about e-commerce, it's also an industry to us here as data professionals. The reason is because it's an open industry that your skill is also needed, especially for those of us in Nigeria. If you decide to work here in Nigeria, there are e-commerce companies like Jumia, Konga, and currently we have a report about Temu, which is also an e-commerce company newly coming into the Nigerian market. So I already sent this data set to us, and I believe everyone got it, which contains date, stock level in units. So I want to believe every one of us have received this. So if in your own data set, you have other informations from column C, what you should do is this: delete them. These are the two data you have to work with. Now I want you to imagine you happen to be working for an e-commerce company that sells various products online. It could be an e-commerce company like Konga. It could be an e-commerce company like Jumia. But the main thing is this e-commerce company sells various products online. You can see, using Jumia as an example, a lot of products are sold here online. Now, the company tracks product sales because if they are selling products online, definitely they must want to track their product sales. And they have data on when stock levels are recorded. However, sometimes stock levels for certain products are missing. It could be due to delay in data entry, or it could be due to system errors. And you've been asked to use the linear interpolation method. This was the data they gave to you. And look at missing. Another information from the 2nd of January is also missing. And you've been tasked to use linear interpolation method to predict the missing stock levels based on the values before and after the missing data. You remember how we did it in our previous meeting. So like I said, the data set here contains two columns. Date. This date is the date when stock level was recorded. Stock level talks about the available quantity of the products they are selling. So we are told here that on the 1st, the total stock level was 100. On the 2nd, we do not have that information. On the 3rd, it was 150. So the date is the date when the stock level is recorded. The stock level units column is the number of items in stock for the products. We're not given the type of product, so we'll take this as the overall for the product. I hope you understand. So what we do here is to use the linear interpolation formula in our Power BI to now estimate what should be the value that was missing on these days. Right here, there are 2 days it was missing. Now, there is a principle behind the linear interpolation formula, which remains the same with what we did in previous classes. The principle is simply we have to estimate the missing value. It could be stock level in this scenario. You may be working in a school project, you may be working in a health project, you may be working in an engineering project. Whatever the project is, the principle remains the same. So whatever we do here is what you apply. So the principle simply is you must estimate the missing data. In my case here, it is stock level we are dealing on. So you have to estimate it based on the known values. The known value that comes before that missing data is 100. The known value that comes after the missing data point is 150. So what linear interpolation is saying is that for we to derive the value that is missing by estimate, we have to work with what? The known values before and after that data point that is missing. I hope we understand it. So in simple terms, what I'm trying to say is that we are going to fill the missing value here between the two known values before and after the missing value. That's how we can estimate what the stock level should be at this missing point and also this missing point. I hope we understand. Now, to help us do this or to help you do this at all times, I've provided what you must do for you to solve that problem faster. The first thing you're to do is to calculate. You have to calculate the previous stock. You have to calculate the previous stock. If you're working on a health project, whatever is the previous, 100 is already the previous. Now we are going to calculate it in a way that will suit the interpolation formula. So you have to calculate the previous stock. You have to calculate the next stock. You have to calculate the previous index. You have to calculate the next index before you then calculate what the estimated stock level units will be using the interpolation formula. And for you to do this one, this numbers, step 5, you will use what you've calculated, the columns you've calculated from step 1 to step 4. Those are what you will now use. So the method is very easy. You just have to do them one after the other. This is the logic behind it. This is the logic behind it. What do we mean by previous stock units? Previous stock units is going to be a column we'll go and create, a calculated column we'll go and create that will now refer to the stock units on the day, the stock units on the day before the current day. Please take note, the word current day means the day data is missing. That's what we call current day, because those are the days it is missing. So previous stock there will become a column that will refer to the stock level units on that day before the current day, which is like the last known value of stock before the current day. I hope we understand this. So this is something that is important for us to do. Same goes with the previous year. The previous stock is also going to be showing us the number of units on the day after the current day. The index is the index of the day before the current day, where the missing value was. The next index will be the index of the day after the current day. So one of the things we'll be creating an index column. And we know that index is simply a key, a unique identifier you assign to your rows. For example, let's say every one of us in this class came together and concluded on an idea that why don't we group all students into a group of 5, maybe study group. And we said, okay, that's fine. But okay, how do we know those that will be in group 1, group 2, group C, group 3, group 4? We now said, okay, let's do it this way. Let's give a general number. So we can say, okay, Mr. Yusuf, you, A, Sachidi, A, Choma, A. So no, the way we'll do it, we can say, okay, instead of doing it that way, let it not be as if, if we say you, A, you, A, you, A, you, A, people will start saying, maybe we selected some persons. You understand? So now decided, okay, let's just count everybody and just throw the number to everybody. So we'll say the first person, A, U, B, U, C, U, D, U, E. We'll come back again, A, B, C, D, E. A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D, E. When we are done, we now said, okay, all the A's, you'll be in group 1. All the B, you'll be in group 2. All the C, you'll be in group 3. All the D, you'll be in group 4. All the E, you'll be in group 5. And that way, people will find themselves in their group, because if you're E, you'll be looking for your fellow E. You see that A, B coded kind of alphabet we have given. It helps us solve a problem of fast tracking and referencing, because we can now refer to all the A. If you know you were assigned B, come this way, we can now reference it. That alphabet is what we call an index, because index is what? A key that helps us track, fast track, reference, could be anything you're referencing. So when dealing with interpolation issues, one of the first things you have to do is to create an index. You have to assign a number to them so you won't be confused. I hope we understand. So this is something that we also have to do here, and that it will make it easier for us. So please let us take note of this, as it's very important, that we understand every one of these. So for the previous index, it's going to be a column we'll create that will now refer to the index number of the day just before the day with the missing data points. So that means this row 2, we have an index number. That's what we call previous index. Like I told us, it will help us find the previous available dates for the stock level. Example, for that's 2nd of January, where the stock level here is missing, the previous index will be what? It will be 1. You see how we'll do it. It will be 1 because I told us in one of our classes that indexing here begins from 0. So the number that will be assigned to the first row will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the index, if the first is 0, the index of the first missing here will be what? 1. Why? Because the previous known stock level, which is 100 that we can see, which is on 1st of January, has an index of what? 0. We'll do this practically now. Then for the next index, is going to be a column we'll create that will now refer to the index number of the day just after the missing data points. And just like the previous index, the next index will also help us find the next available index for the stock level. Example, for the missing date, which is 2nd of January, you can see the same way we said the index will be what? 1. So therefore, the next, which is on the 3rd, which is the after, the index will be what? It will be 2. So let us practicalize this so we'll get to understand this better. So like I said, it's after you have done all this, you will then move. After you have calculated, so you calculate a column for this, you calculate another column for this, you calculate another column for previous index and for index. So you create 4 columns. After you've created 4 columns, you will then go and estimate. You will now use your linear interpolation formula to now estimate what the missing value should be filled with. So if there's anything I want you to understand and be able to apply this to whichever industry you may be working on a project. So the previous stock, like I said in summary, is the known stock value before the missing value. The next stock, like I said within this case study, is the known stock value after the missing value. For index, I said index is a key identifier you assign. So previous index is the key for the previous known date or the previous known level or the previous known index. Next index is the index for the next known level or the next known index. So this is what you will do. And by the time you come to step 5, you use this formula, you find out that the missing stock value for each day will be calculated by finding the proportion of the gap between the previous and next indexes and applying the proportion to the differences in the stock values between the previous stock and the next stock. I hope this is clear. So now that we have understood the logic behind this, I would now want us to now go straight to practicalize this. So the first thing we'll do is to bring this data into Power BI. So we'll come to Power BI, we'll click on Get Data, and then we are going to click on Excel Workbook since it's on Excel format. Then we'll look for it. So I think it's stored on my desktop, Excel assignments, and we should have it somewhere here called e-commerce stock data. Open. Okay, so this is the navigator where we have to check the data set. So check by clicking on it, then we'll click on our load. Okay, so I'm sure you've loaded yours. If you've loaded yours, then you're good to go. So now I will come over to my table view where I'm going to slide towards the right part here where we have the e-commerce stock. So you can see it clearly, the parts that are missing. So what do we do? Right click and then use edit query because this is a query. So edit query takes us to the Power BI query editor. Now, once we get to the Power BI query editor, we will now begin by starting with step 1. So we are going to calculate, or let's use the word create 4 columns first before the main linear interpolation column. So the first 4 columns we'll create is previous stock next. So if you are working on a school project or whatever project, whether it's governmental project, you must create 4 columns first. Create for the previous, the next. So this is something you will see. You will see what is the previous. The one that comes before what is missing is the previous, sir. The one that comes after what is missing is the previous, man. You have to do this. And one of the reasons why we are going to use, okay, so why you create 4 columns first, there's another you have to create. So create index column first before another 4 column before the main. So index will come. The reason why index will come is because index, like I told us what it is, helps us, solve a problem of tracking. If not for index, it will be difficult for us to fill all the missing value. Otherwise, whatever will be filled here will be used to fill the order. So it makes sure that everything is assigned uniquely. So it's a unique identifier, a key. So what do we do? How do we create the first, which should be index column? We'll come to add column, and then we'll click on index column. Once we do this, you notice what happened. And a new column has been created called what? Index 0, 1, 2, 3. So that means we can decide not to even work with anything inside here. We cannot be referring to the index number, because 0 in this data set represents anything that have to do with this row 1. 1 in this data set represents row 2. So instead of saying go to row 2, you can just say go to 1. Instead of saying go to row 4, you can just say go to 3. Instead of saying go to row 1, you just say go to 0. It's like writing equal to 0. That way, you're referring to that entire row. That's the power of index. All the A, come here. All the B, go here. All the D, come here. All the C, go here. Index. You're not referring. Why don't you call those that have A by their name? If Sachidi was part of the A, Mr. Yusuf, Madumka, if they were part of A, or Mr. Nnamdi was in B, or Maokpeyemi was in, let's say, was in D, or why don't we call their names since we have seen them? But you know, it will take us some time to start calling. If you hear your name, you're in A. You, A, this, Adlin, D, Saoka, this. You understand? It's going to take us some time, right? Say, Babatunde Emmanuel, oh yeah, you, yeah. It's going to take us some time. Mafola Shade, oh yeah, you, yeah. Just like that. It will take us some time. Saisa, you, yeah. It will take us some time. But to make it very easy and fast, if you are your ID is A, come here. If your ID is B, go here. That's referencing. I hope you understand. So that's the reason we are doing index. We can now use index and forget about the others. So based on our steps, index have been created. Good. We now move to the next 4 columns to create. The first is what? Previous stock units. How do we do that one? We'll go back to add column. We'll click on custom column. The custom column box will appear. We'll name it previous. Since we are dealing with stock, that's how we'll call it previous stock. If yours is school, student, whatever, previous student score, if that column was score. Maybe you're working on a project that involves construction, and you're told to monitor the construction, maybe as they make usage of material usage, number of cements or materials that they use, and the report sent to you by the supervisor. There are some days the materials used was not captured, but you're told to come up with an estimate. This will be that column that contains the record of those materials. If there was a column that is for cement, there's another one for sand, whatever. That's what you will do this previous for. So my own, the column is what? The column is stock. Look at it, stock level. So that's why I call it previous stock. Or I can go ahead, stock level. So once you do that, you come down here and then you compute it. How? We'll start with if. So we'll say if, we'll now select the stock level units, the column itself, which is this. So I'm saying if this stock level unit is not missing, that's what I've written here. If the column that contains the units is not missing, because what if it's not missing? What if it was actually complete? You know why you're writing it this way? It's because your data set may be very long. You know, I told us of the 3 V's of data. Volume. The volume talks about how large data is. Data is very large. Businesses evolve, things grows, things happens. Things keeps, growing. So prepare for that. I told us about variety, the different types of data, that we have different types. I told us about velocity, how fast data is. And when we talk about velocity, That's the area where index comes, making it faster for us to, to find, to track, to reference data. And I always give us an example of a traffic light. The fact that the traffic light can be able to spot when to turn to green, to turn to red as cars comes is something that should be studied, because at the end of the day, it was built through this indexing and patterns to be able to detect all of that. But that's a talk of another day. So now we have to write this, that if this column is not missing, comma, because there may be others that may not be missing. Since it's long, there may be others that it's not missing. So you have to write it this way. So if that column, and this column can be anything within your own project or scenario. So if it is not missing, what do we do? Let it keep what is there. So if, for example, where we have it missing, let's say it was not missing, a figure was there, let it retain that figure. That's what we are writing. So what will it retain? We'll say, if it's not missing, then this is how we put that statement. Then retain it. So we'll not come here and say, then retain that column. No. What the computer understands, the syntax, is that you will just put that same column like this. So this is what it means. The if is a function, a conditional function that goes and check if this column is not missing. Then it should retain it. That's the language we have spoken here. But if it is missing, we use else for that. Otherwise, we now do what? We now write a syntax called list last. So we say list dot last. Bracket open, list dot remove. Remove nulls, that's remove the missing. Bracket open, list dot first n. I'll tell us what this means. Bracket open, table. So I want to add the column, table dot column. Bracket open. The step before all this, look at it here. It is added index step, where we have applied steps area here. So that step will be referenced in all we do. See, I circled it. Added index step. So I will now come here and put it. So always write it, because if you go to copy that step, you see that it carries hash. That's how it is. So you put the hash sign, and then you put your double quotes, and then you type it, added index, comma, after the double quotes. Give a space, double quotes, then you write the name of it, which is what? You can see it here, stock level units. So you come here and say stock level. Can you see it? Stock level. You come after it, bracket open, comma. I hope you understand what I'm doing here. So after your comma, you then provide your index, which is here already. Look at it here. That's the column that contains index. Index. So we are going to close the brackets against the ones we opened. So you put 1, 2, 3. And that's all. That's all. That's all. So this is something you ought to understand. Very important. Very important. I want to believe you are practicing alongside with me, because this is something that needs you to practice. And in fact, like I said when we started this class, that all we are doing here is in one industry called the e-commerce industry. That's the case study. And you must know, because I know some of you later will message me and ask me, sir, why e-commerce in today's class? And it's important that you know that the e-commerce industry is one of the fastest growing sectors. And data analysis is essential within this industry, especially when it comes to optimizing sales, stock management, and in fact, marketing strategies. So by understanding how to handle missing values in product stock data, it will give you an edge already. To give you an edge, because like I said, it's a skill that will allow you to work with e-commerce companies as remote data analysts. These companies want to be able to analyze their customer behavior. They want to be able to track their product sales. They want to be able to make data-driven decisions that will improve their inventory management and sales forecasting. So you have to demonstrate, how linear interpolation can, achieve this in situations where the missing value could not be recovered. So it's very important. It's very important. There are times you will encounter problems involving missing data. It could be you're working on stock level in e-commerce, product prices, or any business sector. Please take notes. This is where the application issues comes in. Any business sector at all. Any business sector. This is not centered on just one sector. So any business sector. Very important. Okay. So this we have done here. We help create the first column called previous stock. Now, like I said, what I've written here is simply this. I'm saying if the stock level is not missing, let it keep the current value that is found in that place that is not missing. But if, that's from this else now, but if the stock level is missing, we now use a function called list.firstn. What does list.firstn mean? It is a function that we use when we want to find the last value, the last valid value before the missing data. What if where we have this missing for 2nd of January, let's assume if the one that comes before it was also missing, list.firstn will not use it. It will go again to find the last valid. The word valid means whatever that should be the previous must have something, must not be missing. That's what this is for. So don't forget, please. So we'll come down now and click OK. The moment we do that, we can see what we have here on previous stock. So for our previous stock, we are having an error. Now, error is something you will always encounter as a data analyst. So when you encounter error, what you do is to troubleshoot. Remember, we did a class on troubleshooting. So troubleshooting means you check it. I try to identify the error, the issues. So let's check. So looking at here, you can see that the number of brackets we put here is 4. That could be the error, supposed to be 3. 1, 2, 3. So let's remove 1. And then we do what? Tick. So another way you can troubleshoot this, if it's showing you this, highlight, copy, right click and copy the codes that you have here. Then cancel this added column step. Go back here. Then do this. Go back to add column again at the top. Click on custom column. Name previous stock. Inside here, paste what you copied before. So now that we have copied it, we are now going to correct it. If, so this is it. If this is it. So remember, what we did was to remove the 4th bracket, which we detected was causing that issue. So you have to count the brackets. So click on OK again, and we are still having this. So I'm still going to go back and check through. Let's be sure of where we are having our error from. Okay, so you have to look at this so you know where the error is coming from. Okay, so what we're going to do here is this. So we are going to troubleshoot and detect this. So where we have stock level, the name is not complete. It's supposed to be stock level units. So this is what we are going to do. Let's copy this. So we are going to take away this added column, added custom step. So we'll go back, custom column. The name is previous stock. So here we have stock level, we are going to enter units, the complete name, stock level units. So this is another error detected. Stock level units. So come down, click on OK. Stock level units. Okay, so once you have that stock level units, you click on the table. You saw what I did, right? Saw how it appeared, showing us previous stock, table, table, table. So I click on the table. It then expands it. So we can now see the previous stock. So with this, we'll do the same to compute that of our previous. I hope you all can see my screen. So this is what I mean. So we are done with previous stock. So we'll do the same for next stock. So now that we have spotted some of the common errors, so move here. So we're going to give it a name, custom column. So we're going to call this next. So for next, it's still going to be a kind of similar. So we say if our stock level is not missing, then it should keep stock level units. But otherwise, list dot first. So for next, we use first, not last. Bracket open, list dot remove nulls. Bracket open, list dot skip. So this list dot skip, I will explain what it does. Table dot column. So this syntax I'm writing here cut across any sector. You just have to memorize it. So the step again. So the only thing you will change is just the name of the column that carries the list of those values, whether missing or not missing. Inside that column is what you just replace. So we'll say the step before it is called what? We have it here called, this time around it is, I think the step is added custom. So let's say added, or added index rather. Added index, comma, or double quotes. We'll now put the name of that column, which is this stock level units. So put it inside stock level units. Bracket close after the quote, comma. We'll now provide our index, the index column, plus 1. Then bracket close. I think this should be 4 brackets or 3 brackets. Okay. So this is what you have to do. Now, what we have done here is simply saying if the stock level, just flow with my cursor, if the stock level is not null, then let it keep the existing value. But if the stock level is missing, let the system look forward to the next available data that comes after the missing. So we use what we call list.skip. It is a function that we use when we want to look forward. It is that list.skip that will make the system to look for 150. Since 150 comes after what is missing. So list.skip means if here is missing, look for. Are you seeing it now? That's what list.skip does. List.firstN looks at the back. If this is missing, look backward. That's what we did in previous stock. Now, in previous stock, look at previous stock. Remember the explanation I gave. You find out that in previous stock column, it has filled the missing value with 100. Can you see it? It uses the previous to fill the missing. In next column that we want to create, it will use the next to fill the missing. So in next, you should see 100 there. I hope you understand. So like I said, we use the list.skip to look forward to the first valid value after the missing data points. So let's click OK. You'll see that it will use the next to fill. What do you notice in next stock? Can you see 150 have been used to fill 100? And 150 is the next 100, and the cell where it replaces with 150 was missing. Can you see that next stock, based on the formula, uses the next to fill the missing? Previous uses the previous, the backward, the old one to fill. Can you see it? But this is not what we want to solve. This is not the problem being solved yet. The problem being solved is where we are going to. Remember, we are to create 4 columns before we now use the 4 to now estimate what will be the missing. So we don't just say, okay, if previous stock was 100, let's use 100. No. Or if next stock was 150, let's use 150. We don't do that. Whatever we do here must be backed by evidence. So we'll come now. So that means next stock done. The next will now be what? Previous index. How do we do that one? Same method. We'll go click on custom column. We'll name it previous index. Remember the explanation I gave? We want to find the index of the previous stock. The index of the previous stock. So we'll come here. We'll say if the same stock level units is not missing, then stock level units, that means it should be retained. Can you see it? But this time around, we'll not use stock level units because we are dealing with index. So we'll say then the index should be retained, the index of it. Else, list, make sure when you choose your else, give a space so that you don't, a space like this, then come down. So else, list dot last, bracket open, list dot remove nulls, bracket open, list dot first n, bracket open, table dot column, bracket open, hash, then the double quotes, added index. After the double quotes, comma, put your hash, your double quotes, then enter the name of the column, which is index. The name of the column is index. So that's what we'll put here. Then you close your bracket, comma, then we enter index again. Bracket close. So this is what we'll do. So what we'll have here, we are saying if the stock level is valid, keep the index of that previous stock level. But if it is missing, go back to the previous index that has a valid stock data. That's what we have done here. So it cuts across all sectors. All you will do is just know the column that has the values. That's what you replace here. The index column should be here. The index column should be here. Then give the same name for that column that has the index. That's all. So when you're done, click on OK. If there's any error, we troubleshoot. Now that we have done it, what do you see? We now have previous index, right? Beautiful. So previous index is just the opposite or in line with previous stock. It uses the index of the previous. The index of the previous was 0. So it uses 0 to replace the missing index, which is 0. Can you see it? Good. Beautiful. So let's go. That means previous index column is done. The next is next index column. So following same method, we'll go click on custom column. I think that's the last before the calculation. So we'll call it next index. We'll come down and write the formula for that. So our next index is going to be if stock level unit is not null, then the index should be retained. Else, otherwise, else, then space, so you can come down. List dot first, the same way we did for next talk. Bracket open, list dot remove nulls. Bracket open, list dot skip. Bracket open, table dot colon. Bracket open, the step, hash sign, double quotes, added index, double quotes, comma, double quotes. The column name is index, bracket close after the double quotes, comma. Then capture your index column here, +1, bracket open, just like this. So this +1 just means plus the next day. So now, what we have done here, we are saying if the stock level is valid, that means if it is not missing, because when something is valid, it means it's not missing, it's okay, it's available. Then the system should keep the index for that stock level. But if it is missing, let it look for, that's what we'll now use list.skip. Let it look for, or let it go forward to find the next valid index after the missing. So we'll now come down and click on what? Okay. And what do you see? You find out that we now have next index created. But like I said, this next index, previous index will be deleted later because they are not what we need. It's just a breakdown. You can decide to combine all the formula, but it will be complex for you. So this breakdown method is better. So what we actually need is not all this. Showing this is good, but the reason why we provided it is to now use it in our linear interpolation formula to compute and calculate the estimated missing value. So it's now time to now go and use previous stock, next stock, previous index, next index for our linear interpolation. If you remember that linear interpolation formula, remember the formula we had during our class. If you remember that formula, you find out that what I'm saying is true. Because in the formula, this is where you now have to apply what we have here. Was it not in the formula we said that is going to be our previous stock plus index minus our previous index divided by our next index minus our previous index times our next stock minus our previous stock? That's the formula. Remember that formula now that we did in class? That was, we started with that formula, if you recall. So that's what we'll now do now. Now we used to say semester stock equal to, we can say, was it not Y1? So go and replace all that. But forget about all those. This one is the best. So what do you do now? You now compute this. How? You now want to compute the estimated stock units that we fill it with the correct estimate. So we'll come click on custom column. We'll make use of the previous that we have done. You can see all of them appearing here now. So we'll call this estimated. This is what we are finding, the main thing we came to look for. So we'll say estimated stock units. Estimated stock level units. So if our stock level units is not missing, then let it keep the stock level, whatever is there. Otherwise, our previous stock, can you see now that we have done previous stock, it's now easy to select it from the list of columns. So otherwise, our previous stock plus bracket open, our index minus our previous index, bracket close, divided by bracket open, our next index minus our previous index, bracket close, multiplied by bracket open, our next stock minus our previous stock, bracket close. That's all. So what this means is this. We are saying if the stock level is not missing, let the system keep the existing value. But if, now come to else, else means but or otherwise. If the stock level is missing, that's what we are saying here. If the stock level is missing, we now apply linear interpolation formula, which I told us the formula is to subtract the previous stock, no, to subtract the previous index, stock index from the current. So you can see how we did that here. And then divide it by the difference between the next and previous index multiplied by the next stock minus the previous stock. This now gives us the estimated stock level units. We can now go and remove all these ones. This next index, remove column. Previous index, remove column. Next stock, remove column. Previous stock, remove column. We now have our estimated stock level units. So the essence of the other columns was to help us do this. Same way we can remove index. So this becomes the estimated stock level units. So once these have been confirmed, you can also remove stock level that was missing, made up of missing. You don't need it. We'll now go and work with this. We now have our dates and our estimated stock level units. So you can see what was used is 125, which is the estimate, and the other is 150. Can you see it? So ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of interpolation class. Please go through each formulas, memorize them, go again, and go again. Like I told you, this is important. So please practice and practice so that when you come across it, of course, it will come out in your exams. So when you come across it in your exams, you'll be able to approach them the right way. So practice makes perfect. So practice. See you all in our next class and we'll move to the next topic. Thanks and stay blessed.